Hey everybody, Rich Ganem here again, and with me today is Kevin Kovach, who many of you know as an agent in our office. But what some of you might not know is that Kevin also spearheads a lot of the marketing that we do internally here in the Westlake office. But he also does stuff on the corporate side with the social media team and a lot of the marketing that you see running around on the corporate side of things. He's also a husband and a father, and in order to get it all done, today's conversation is going to be about time blocking, and like doing the best you can to stay in a schedule, right?
Yes.
But Kevin, before we jump in, give people a little a snapshot of who is Kevin Kovach and how did Kevin fall into an agent in the office and some of the marketing stuff.
Sure. So thanks, Rich, for the introduction. So right now, yes, I'm still a full-time agent. I still have the opportunity to buy and sell, help my clients, help my past clients. But I also do marketing for the office, for the Westlake office. And I also work on the corporate side now. So I help on the social media team corporate-wide. And I also help train for the company. We just came out with Russell Tech Connect Academy. Have another training tonight. But
this isn't going to go out.
This isn't going to go out tonight, but going to say it
anyway.
Well,
you mentioned it. So
sure.
It's going to run in coordination with Grip and Launch.
Yes.
On Thursdays at 6:30 on Zoom.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
It's you and Nick Lawson.
Correct.
Right. So if Grip is going on or if Launch is going on right now, both are on Wednesdays. The Thursday evening at night from 6:30 to 9, 6:30 to 9.
6:30 to whenever we're done. So
6:30
typically
to whenever
8.
we're done. Okay. So 6:30 into midnight. Tune in, and we're going to be going. They're going to go over all the tech stuff, websites,
all the programs that Russell provides that we should be using that maybe people just haven't learned or taken the time to learn.
You know what this is the perfect time to do? It's a perfect time to time block that into your calendar to make sure you attend.
Yeah. Perfect.
Shameless plug. I digress. Continue. Go ahead.
Sure. I guess on the personal side, I do take care of my kids at home. So my wife goes to work during the day. I don't take my child to daycare. I watch him. I drop my one kid off at school. And I've been doing that for almost 6 years now. So to me, it seems like an eternity. But so I've been kind of pulling everything together, trying to get everything done that I need to get done, which is why we're talking about time blocking today.
Yeah.
So it was brought up in another meeting that I had that I'm kind of being taken over as like the person that what do we need to get done today? Well, yeah, we can worry about March and April and May and the rest of the year. And that's all important with planning. But if you don't get done what you need to get done today and tomorrow and this week, that's not really setting yourself up for success for the following weeks.
You just unloaded a whole bunch of information. So let's unpack this. If we don't get done what we need to get done today, the rest of it doesn't matter. Is essentially the nuts and bolts of what you said.
It won't look like how you want it to look as your idea. Because next month is just an idea. It's a great idea, but if you don't get things done to get to that idea, it won't matter as much.
So let's unpack that from an agent perspective, okay? Wake up in the morning, right? And we have an entire day, really probably like 16, 18 hours. We have an entire day to fill. How, as an agent, what's the most effective way that you've seen to be able to make sure everything gets done? And then what happens to the stuff that doesn't get done?
So what I do is because I have family commitments, I have work commitments. What I do is every week I print out my Google Calendar that's synced with my wife. She can add anything to it. I can add anything to it. I know exactly when she plans this next date night or the next time that she has to be out and I need to watch the kids, what have you. So once I print that out for the week, I print it off a week at a time. And then I'll write in pen, kind of like with a line, like this is when I pick up my kid, this is when they go to bed, this is when this one goes on a nap. And then that kind of sets up the blocks for, okay, this day I've got a block to do X, Y, and Z. This day I've got this. This day I've got a meeting. This night I can work on this at this time. So for me, it's definitely a week by week. And then as the days, as simple as it is, as the days go on, I cross off that day move on to the next day, and try and set up what I'm going to do for the next day the night before.
Okay, so I'm gonna take that. You take your week, right? And you already have preset appointments that are booked. Take your son to daycare or to school, right? Or this one goes down for a nap or whatever it is. You have pre-planned events that automatically happen on the same days or different days at different times.
Correct.
That you then have to backfill everything else into.
Correct. And that's probably the biggest thing, at least for me, is that every day is not the same. I'm sure you can you can relate.
No day's ever the same in this industry, right?
So especially with my wife having concerts and other things at night, every day is different. So for someone to say, oh, well, every night at this time, just do it every day. Well, that's not going to work. Because this day, 4 hours I can't do. This night, I could do 4 hours that night. So for me specifically, doing it per week, every week's different, so it helps to finite exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah. And then those fixed appointments, right? Like take your son to school or this one goes down for a nap. What happens if that appointment's not hit? Like what does your world look like if that appointment doesn't happen? I'm calling it an appointment because in my mind, anything that goes on my calendar, regardless of what it is,
sure,
whether it's go to the gym or show this property or meet with this agent or whatever, it's everything in my world is an appointment.
Sure.
So that's why I'm using that. So what happens in your world if one of those appointments that you have on your calendar gets missed with your family?
Well, so as an example, so let's just say a nap didn't happen, because any parents out there, that happens. They just don't sleep even if you want them to sleep. Same thing with bedtime. Maybe bedtime got pushed back. But also if you have a meeting set and they cancel for whatever reason, or if you have another meeting with another agent and it gets pushed back because they have a change in their calendar, honestly, it's at that point, it's hour by hour. And to be frank, like sometimes things fall apart.
Well, you have to adjust, right?
Yeah, you have to adjust to what is going on that day. And
yeah. Well, like if you miss the appointment to take your son to school,
which should never happen.
Right. Right. But taking your son to school could also be code word for I need to lead generate for business for 2 hours today. Right. It could be, so your very important appointment of taking your son to school is no different than an agent that says today I'm going to go to the gym, and they don't go to the gym.
Sure.
Or putting your son down for a nap. The intention might be an hour and a half nap today, but maybe it's only 45 minutes, right? We have to pivot and we have to adjust. But time blocking, you'll based on your calendar, if it was that important, one, you're not going to miss it, right? You're not going to forget to pick your son up from school. Shouldn't, right? But just as you shouldn't forget to pick your son up for school, an agent in their business shouldn't forget to prospect today.
Correct.
Because it's that important.
Yes.
Right? Because the most important things
that needs to happen.
Right. What happens if you miss date night because it wasn't on your calendar and you didn't time block it?
Well, that depends on your spouse, but
very true.
Most of the time, it's probably not going to end well. But
yeah, it doesn't. Well, it doesn't end well, right? Because you had an appointment with somebody, and you missed that appointment. You wouldn't miss an appointment with for a listing appointment. You would put that on your calendar. You wouldn't miss a buyer appointment. You'd put that on your calendar. You wouldn't miss whatever that important topic is. You wouldn't miss that. It goes on your calendar. Most agents don't keep a calendar. They just wing it. Most agents.
Hey, I used to be there.
We all did.
I used to wing it.
We all did. But you get to a point where you can only wing it for so long. And then you have all of these balls in the air, right? Yep. And you only have 2 hands. And if you have 6 balls in the air, what happens if they all fall at the same time? You might catch 1, maybe 2. So then you let everything else down. But if it's time blocked, you know that by the time you throw 1 ball up, you have X number of seconds before it's going to come down.
Sure. Yep.
Right? So you're able to plan what that looks like throughout the course of your morning. Most agents, did you know this? Most agents that work from home, they wake up in the morning, and if you're an agent like me, first thing you do is turn on SportsCenter. You make a cup of coffee. you drink that cup of coffee, you have breakfast, you make another cup of coffee, you drink that. Now it's 11 o'clock, and you've watched 4 hours of the exact same sports center. Nothing else has changed, right? And then it's lunchtime, and then it's 3 o'clock, and then you're like your whole day's done. But because you didn't time block your day, of course you're not going to get anything done. You said there's nothing important today because it wasn't on your calendar.
Well, and even if you have tasks you need to get done that day, in your mind, you'll tell yourself, well, I'll get it done today, just not right now.
Yeah.
Especially if you didn't make that specific time, 9 to 11 in the morning or 1 to 3 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
If you don't actually say what time you're going to do it, it's going to get pushed back.
Yeah.
And by the end of the day, there are only so many things you can do, and something's got to go.
Mm-hmm.
And then you prioritize in your head A, B, C, D, and then probably some of the most important stuff goes to the next day.
Yeah.
And then the cycle continues.
Do you know why that all real estate coaches and any training class you've ever taken, do you know why everybody says you need to lead gen from 9 to 11 every morning, first thing?
Why is that?
It's because it's the most important part of your day, right? And it's also the most terrifying part of most agents' days. And if you can avoid pain long enough, you're just not going to get it done. Most people run to pleasure and avoid pain, right?
Yeah.
So it's like the pleasure of not lead generating is more fun than the pain of being broke. Because the most beneficial time to prospect in your business is actually from 4 to 6:30 p.m. That's statistics show more people are going to answer their phone between 4 and 6:30. Yet what happens between 4 and 6:30? We have to pick up our kids. We have to make dinner. We have to get them ready for bed. We have showings. We have all of these other things.
That life, yeah.
Life shows up between 4 and 6:30. So if we wake up in the morning, put on our pants, shave, we'll do our hair, whatever, and the first thing we do is attack our time block, and we eat that frog first, then your entire day can go to crap because you got the most important part done. Right? Because the only money-making activity that a real estate agent actually does, the only money-making activity, is prospecting for new business and lead follow-up. Right?
Yeah, agreed.
But it's also like the number one thing that most agents I'm not doing. Most agents I'm not picking up the phone. But what are they going to say? What do I say when they answer? Which is a completely different conversation for a completely different day, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
Sure.
But when it comes to time blocking, it's so very important to know if it's that important to you in your business, you need to make it a priority. Just like picking up your kids, just like making sure that they take a nap, all of that stuff, right?
Yep.
So let's talk about in your business between the family stuff, the real estate sales stuff, the marketing stuff, the tech team stuff.
Wow, you listed a lot of things there, Rich.
But what happens in your business when you alluded to, you get to the end of the day and you're like, not everything got done? What does that look like?
Well, I'm still a creature of habit, so I do have a lot of Post-it notes on my desk at home. And this Post-it note, once you crumple it up, you have that accomplishment feeling, like I accomplished it, I get to throw it away.
Yeah.
But there's still all the other Post-it notes there. So I rationalize just like everybody else, A, B, C, D, what's got to get done. And often enough, I can stretch myself thin just like everybody else does and say, well, this really doesn't need to get done for a couple more days. This doesn't really need to get done today. What needs to absolutely be done today? Well, one of the things like that would be when I market for the office, I make sure that the open houses at the latest are on social media by Friday. So on Friday, I double check to make sure the open houses are set and they're on there. I don't wait till Saturday. I don't wait till Sunday. It's already happening. So that's one of the line in the sand examples. Open houses, social media by Friday, if not Thursday. So you got to figure out what are those lines in the sand that you absolutely need to get done by a certain time.
So what I'm hearing you say is the most important stuff always gets done first.
Yes.
And then it's prioritized on everything else.
Yes. So if you have a client that's expecting you to do some work, well, when are they exactly expecting that work to be done? If it's not today, and if it's next week, I don't have to do it today. If I get it done today, that's fine, that's great. But if there are other things that come up because you just got a phone call or a text from another past client, then that takes precedent. Or if you're working on your listing presentation and you time blocked it, or you're working on prospecting and you time blocked it, you shouldn't be like, well, I think I'm just going to work on this guy's stuff for next week because I'm more comfortable with that. Because then the prospecting doesn't happen today, and it's probably not happening next week.
It's very much that compound effect, right?
Yes.
And you mentioned it in the beginning, right? You said something, and I'm gonna paraphrase and I'm gonna butcher it, and I apologize. But you said something that we take today and then we build upon today into next month. The next month is an idea. Talk more about what that is to you and how you approach it, especially from a marketing standpoint, from the tech team standpoint, because we live in this instant gratification world, right? Where it all has to get done right here, right now, everything. Yet that's really not the reality of a lot of situations.
Sure. Kind of restate your question because I had an idea, but finite the question a little bit.
I don't remember what I asked. No, so you look at, like, we have today and tomorrow is an idea,
Okay.
and we have to get this done in order to get this done. And in order to get this done, we can't go here until this is done, right? So it compounds it. With everything that has to get done, like the prioritization of those things, it has to start somewhere in a designated time block. So creating that opportunity, I really don't remember what my question was.
Well, here, I'll jump in. So I think two things. So first thing, with every assignment that you do or every appointment, you really need to set a time frame for the line, your absolute deadline.
Okay.
When is that absolute deadline? If you can set that for each of these tasks or all your meetings, then that sets up what's priority. Okay, well, this needs to happen today. This needs to happen today. This can happen next week. I also think there's something to say about accomplishing something. Like I said, crumpling up the Post-it note.
Yeah.
Like, you kind of need to become like an accomplishment junkie, if you will. Like, getting things done and that feeling you get by getting it done will help you push momentum into getting the things done the following day, the next week.
It's
and
domino.
Then when you look back on it, you're like, wow, I accomplished this week, this week, this last month. And I did all that because I was focused. I was making sure that I was prioritizing what needed to get done. And the things that I really want to do sometimes don't need to be done now. Like, for example, I have a client that he's got health issues, so like things are kind of sporadic anyway, as far as communication, as far as trying to get things done. But like, we're having issues with something with his listing, and like, so it's not going to be listed today. Let's put it that way. There's these issues that need to be resolved that I cannot Superman resolve for him. So once these things get resolved, then you can kind of push for that listing a little bit more. But I know that day's not today, and I know it's not tomorrow. So for me, working on his stuff, yes, it's a priority because he's a client, but whatever I do today will not matter because nothing's going to happen probably for weeks, if not a month.
Sure, that makes sense. So there are two things that came to my head as you were talking about that. Susan Scott wrote a book called Fierce Conversations, and in the book she talks about how everything in life happens gradually and then suddenly, right? Like, you don't wake up in the morning and go, I'm going to run a marathon, right? You wake up in the morning and go, all right, I'm going to run a mile, and then I'm going to run a mile tomorrow, and then by the end of the week, maybe I'm going to do 2 miles or 3 miles, and the next thing you know, you've worked your way up to a 5K, a 10K, a half, and eventually you get to a marathon, right? Same thing with, like, diet. You don't wake up in the morning and go, I am never eating ice cream again. I am dairy free. 100. You probably start with, well, I'm going to eliminate this and I'm going to eliminate that, and then gradually, then suddenly you're on this diet, this health kick, whatever. So gradually, and then suddenly, and then in the book Good to Great, Jim Collins talks about, like, the hedgehog effect, right? And very similar to what you're saying is you have to start somewhere and to build that momentum up. In the book, The Hedgehog Effect, it's essentially taking like a clock wheel, right, from an antique clock. It's got all like the little wheels in it or whatever. You start pushing, and it does. Over time, you're going to start to move that hedgehog effect. You're going to start to move that wheel, but it takes time. And then once you start moving it, you can't stop it because you've built the momentum. Very similar to a time block, right? Like when this becomes the most important part of your day, you feel bad that you miss not doing it.
Sometimes.
Well, yeah. but you feel weird, right?
Yeah.
You feel weird. Like I'm supposed to do this, and
maybe
then like
guilt. Maybe guilt's
the right word because you know that it's important, right? But like you decided to like have the cookie instead of going for the run.
Well, and the procrastinator in me, because I'm sure I'm not the only procrastinator out there, you realize that you survived the day, the next morning came, the sun rose, and everything's still okay. Mm-hmm. So that's not such a great thing because sometimes it enables your procrastination, but at the same time, you can feel the reward once you accomplish something.
Well, and I think we have to feel the reward in our industry, right? Because everything we do today is going to show up 30, 60, 90 days from now.
What you were saying earlier, I had thought of an example of when I bought a car last year. So I spent countless hours the 6 months prior to buying the car just looking, making sure I had the right criteria, making sure the car was in the shape that I wanted it to be, the right year, the right mileage. Eventually it turned into like what I wanted it to be with the right model and all that. And then at that point it was just waiting to see what's out there as far as cars. And then, so that was a gradual, honestly, I was just looking at Facebook Marketplace for like 6 months, just scrolling through cars, just to get an idea what prices were like, what prices for certain cars go for, that sort of thing. So that's the gradual. And then one day, I finally see something that I think is it. So me being a realtor and knowing you need to strike when the iron's hot, the car was in Akron. I drove to Akron that day, made the appointment. Now, I do have a little bit of trouble with decision making, so I couldn't buy the car like that minute. However, he did give me the okay to take it home for the night, to get the inspection, to just see how it goes. So with all that said, I brought it back and I basically told my wife, I'm not driving back here, so we either buy it or we don't, because it's 50 miles away. So we ended up going through all the checklist of what it's going to take for us to buy the car and whatever, and we bought it. But to go to your gradual and then instant, like it took so long for me to figure out what I wanted, and then when it finally happened, that aha moment that I said, this is the one, I jumped on it because it's similar to houses, and it's similar to our clients and our past clients or our new business. Like if someone's looking for a house, they're like, yeah, I'm in the market, and you've been talking to them, you've been following up with them, but you kind of know that they're not ready, whether they're not pre-approved yet or whether they just don't really know what they want. They're like, well, I could live in these 8 cities. You're like, well, we're gonna need to make that a little more concise because I'm not driving you to 8 cities. So because you don't really know what you want. You need to figure that out. Now there is something to say about seeing a house, and that helps you, but you got to dwindle it down to a starting point. So oftentimes you'll talk with somebody for weeks, if not months, that isn't quite ready, but that one day you'll get the phone call. Hey, I saw this address. Can you look at it for me? I want to see it today. And then the aha moment goes off in your head because now, for all these months, you know what they want. You know exactly what puts the wife and the husband or whoever at cloud 9. Like, you know exactly what they want at that point. And you go and look at those pictures of that house and you're like, holy crap, I think this is it. So now in your head, it goes from gradual with working with them to just keeping up with them to, okay, where in my time blocked schedule can I fit in this showing and probably an offer that I'm going to have to do with them and walk them through that.
Right.
So at that point, you're getting your adrenaline rush. You're like, holy crap, I think I can get this for them. Obviously, from that point, anything can happen, whether it's good or bad. But at least going back to your time blocking, if that schedule is already set up, as far as like what's flexible or what you could move or what is available. There's no like, well, I really, I know you want to go at 2:00, but I've got this, and there's no like decision making. It's kind of made for you already. You're just like, well, I can go at 4.
Yep.
And if you really want to see it, I mean, 4:00's got to work.
Yeah. Well, and to that point, it's like you're not going to cancel date night with your wife to go run and show a buyer a property that they may or may not like. You had an appointment, right? You time blocked that as more that this is my appointment.
Now,
nothing is going to get in the way of that.
Now I'll admit, so a buyer appointment, that's different. So I did cancel date night once.
Oh, Megan's got a she's got to be mad.
And we spent money, and the money was gone. So it was for a Cavs game, and
we don't get that now, but they did.
Well, this was when they were good. I mean, they're good now.
They are good.
They're doing better.
They're
doing better this year.
They are good now.
So, so we had Cavs tickets, and I had a listing, and we got multiple offers, and I needed to walk through the sellers through all the offers and help them with their decision. Well, I knew that Cavs game wasn't going to happen because, I mean, Cavs game starts at 7. You pretty much have to drive down there at the latest 6:00 just to either find out where you're going to park or how you're going to get into the stadium and whatever. And, they don't get out of work till at least 5 or 6. So to me, it just wasn't going to happen. And it's also not an option for me to be like, well, I know that we've got this deal going on, but I need to go see LeBron James play. That wasn't, in my mind, it wasn't going to happen.
Sure.
But at the same time, I thought, well, I know the tickets are wasted because we're not using them and the money's gone. But how much money am I going to make by making sure this deal happens? We can go to 20 more games or whatever, So it's also that what kind of reward or what kind of positive impact is this going to make?
Absolutely.
So that was an exception.
Well, there are times that it's an exception, right? But but few and far between,
Sure.
Are you going to cancel date night? Right, like Megan would if that
for a new buyer consultation, you're going to cancel date night. You've never met the person before.
Exactly.
Like, yeah, it's not going to work.
Right, and to a degree, like our spouses, God bless them, right? Like God bless our spouses who put up with us in this industry. But there's a level of understanding there where she's like, I get it. This is level 10. It's still date night. We're still gonna go, but we're gonna go at 7 instead of at 5. Or whatever that is, right? There are times where
or if it's a different day, you might need to up your game for that date night.
Yeah, right. Like
because you got to make up for it.
Right. Instead of going to Longhorn, we're going to Marble Room or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So let's wrap up because we have talked about so many different things, including the Cavs.
Somehow, yeah.
I don't know how we got there, but we did. Darius Garland, Rookie of the Year.
Well, he's not a rookie, but I hear you.
Or Evan Mobley.
He's the rookie.
Whatever. He's going to win Rookie of the Year.
I hope so.
He is. LeBron's going to want to come back and ruin the whole thing.
Yeah. We don't need him anymore.
Okay.
Yeah. But
rabbit hole.
Moving off that, yeah.
Rabbit hole. Wrap this up for me. Put a bow on it in terms of time blocking. As a new agent that walks into real estate for the very first time,
sure.
What are the 2-3 things that you would give them to say, make sure you do these couple things in your time block to make sure you build and grow your business?
So I guess first thing would be make sure you are putting all of your calendar together. I remember there was a day when I was just like, okay, this is my work calendar, this is my personal calendar, and then trying to keep them separate. Now that I have so many things intertangled, like that doesn't work. Like I need to know exactly what's going on with everything to actually make everything work. So that'd be the first thing. Integrate both your personal schedule and your work schedule. I guess the second thing would be, I'm assuming if you're a new agent, you should be working with a mentor. So talk to your mentor about those tasks that need to be done, the nice to be done, and someday to be done. However you want to categorize that. Make sure that those get into your schedule a certain amount of hours per week. That's another thing you can kind of calculate if you want. See how many hours per week you're actually working. And that'll either
available to work.
Right. That'll either surprise you to like, wow, I'm putting in a lot of time, or wow, I actually have a lot more time than I thought I did, and I really should be working more. So that's another aha moment when you have it on paper. You feel like you're drowned, you feel like you're working so hard, but at the same time, you're only putting in this many hours.
Yeah.
Realistically.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
What else? So I mean, yeah, just making sure everything's integrated, making sure you talk with your mentor about exactly what you should be doing in the process that you're at now, whether it's day 1 or day 90 or day 120. You're working on different things. Obviously things come up. You've got listings, you've got other, so whatever is important at that time, make sure you talk with your mentor about a plan. You have a plan for that day, a plan for that week. Eventually you'll get plans for the future, but like we said, if you don't set the blocks now, in the future, it's going to be disorganized. It's not going to be what you think it's going to be.
Yeah.
It's just an idea.
It's just an idea, right? Awesome. Kevin, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate
Sure.
it.
Very welcome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
All right.